It took a devastating and deadly fire to finally create this, the new Mont Blanc tunnel. Today a feat of technology, born of tragedy. Between 1 and 2 million vehicles pass through this key crossing between Italy and France annually. During the 12-minute passage inside, they see a safety exit every 300 meters, 37 in all, and a powerful fume extraction system. Below the road are aeration and service tunnels, all new safety factors that guarantee that the catastrophe of 1999 can never happen again.
The
safety system, developed for the Mont Blanc tunnel at both the technical and operational levels, has been designed to avoid that in the case of an incident like the one in 1999, there are consequences, such as happened in 1999.
Today there are 3 fire stations in the tunnel with permanent fire crews, ready to intervene at any moment. Powerful extractor turbines make sure not only that fresh air is pumped into the tunnel, but that fumes are extracted fast. It is a vastly different tunnel from the one that was destroyed by a fire in March 1999 that killed 39 people, including a French fire chief.
The smoke came towards us and would have overtaken us. So with the truck, I moved 50, 100 meters at a time to leave the smoke behind me. After which, we could have come out, but we stayed on purpose. We went to Refuge 24 because, so as to regroup, to go and save people.
Et lorsqu'on se présente à l'entrée du tunnel, un mur de fumée est face à nous.
When we got to the entrance to the tunnel, we were met by a wall of smoke, and we penetrated the pitch blackness. So, pitch blackness, zero visibility, and the only help we had was to drive onto the pavement and follow the tunnel wall.
It's the 24th of March 1999. The Mont Blanc tunnel that connects France and Italy under Europe's highest mountain is rocked by an explosion. No one knows what is happening, except for the drivers in both directions, who first face a wall of thick smoke and then a fireball. What the women, men and children who perished in these vehicles, reduced to twisted carcasses, actually saw and experienced will never be known. But today, more than 2 decades later, what has become clear is not just what went wrong, but also what had to change for the tunnel to be a route of safe passage once again. The morning sun kisses Europe's tallest mountain, and the golden glow spreads down the valley. The stunning Mont Blanc Massif marks the border between Italy and France. But while the tunnel beneath it passes from one country to another, the mountain cultures on either side, in the Savoie region of France and Aosta region of Italy, are closely tied, both historically and culturally, as the region's stone and timber architecture and rugged alpine heritage show. The Mont Blanc tunnel disaster of 1999 was the worst tunnel fire ever to befall Europe. It divided the 2 nations, yet united them in heroism and grief, and the desire not to see history repeated. Today, Italy and France hold joint exercises. If there were ever a fire again, many mistakes would be avoided. There are now 3 fire stations located inside the tunnel. This is the central one, where a heavy engine and a light vehicle are stationed. David Giuliani is the head of the tunnel's fire service.
En matière de lutte contre l'incendie en tunnel, la chose primordiale.
In terms of firefighting in the tunnel, the essential element is speed of the teams to the fire and the massive attack of extinguishing materials such as water or water and emulsifier. Here in the tunnel we have teams in Italy, France and at the centre of the tunnel, and a heavy fire engine at each station, and they have to be engaged, carrying all their equipment, including breathing apparatus, within 3 minutes of the event being detected.
Today, the tunnel is technologically one of the most advanced in Europe, with 120 cameras monitoring traffic and safety, and a complicated network of temperature and speed sensors that produce 35,000 different data points for managing and monitoring the tunnel. Although the idea of reducing travel time to Italy by days with a tunnel under Europe's highest mountain has been around for centuries, it is only in 1957 that the parliaments of Italy and France agreed to finance the Mont Blanc tunnel. The tunnel is opened to traffic in 1965 by Presidents de Gaulle of France and Saragat of Italy. At the time, it is the world's longest road tunnel and technically deepest. Engineer Franco Cuas worked on building the under-road aeration ducts and became director of the tunnel. He was present at the opening.
È stata una grande giornata, quella del 16 luglio 1965.
That day, the 16th of July 1965, was a great day. Then all these people who came for the opening disappeared, and I was left alone with my Valle people to wait for 6 a.m. of the 19th of July 1965, when the first cars entered the tunnel. I didn't sleep very well the night before, because I was quite worried. At the end of the day, you know, it was the longest tunnel under the tallest mountain of Europe. And of course, I thought to myself, it is actually only 12 kilometers of road, but it was a new road. So, you know. But then when the first cars came through, I was happy to see that all went well.
The tunnel is 11.6 kilometers long, and the entrances are a little over 1,200 meters above sea level on the French side and 1,300 on the Italian side. It runs 2,000 meters under the highest mountain in Europe and proved a great logistical improvement for linking northern and southern Europe.
We
went from a few thousand lorries in the first year to tens of thousands of lorries. And this proved that the Mont Blanc tunnel was useful to the European economy, because each truck carried the result of the work of many people, not only in Italy and France, but in other countries too. So the value of the goods passing through the Mont Blanc tunnel was enormous. That was the main goal. Then, obviously, we had to adapt the infrastructures, not only the ventilation plant, but also the general safety structures to meet the needs of this increased traffic.
The tunnel, from its outset, has been the subject of constant improvement, but especially since the fire of 1999. Riccardo Grigacci is the Director General for the Italian side of the tunnel.
The tunnel evolves continuously. So obviously, after 20 years, it contains inside it a variety of new technologies to ensure safety that I would not say are static. They are instruments that evolve constantly as the available technology evolves. And I'm referring to TV cameras, automatic traffic sensors, as well as software that evolves to manage all the instrumentation that is present in the tunnel.
There are 4 ventilation tunnels that supply air to ventilation ducts every 10 meters along the base of the road on the Italy to France side of the tunnel. These are supplied by turbines located at either end of the tunnel in huge turbine rooms. They are able to push 150 cubic meters of fresh air per second every 600 meters into each of the ducts. There is also a fume extraction duct that can be reversed to push fresh air into the tunnel. These turbines are the extractors. In 1999, ventilation turbines played a crucial role in the rescue attempts. Every 300 meters, there are side garages that lorries can park in and bays that they can back into to turn around. The safety refuges located close to alternate parking bays are equipped with flashing lights, a double safety door, video connection that allows escapees to communicate directly with the control and command center.
Buongiorno a tutti, siete all'interno di un luogo sicuro nel traforo del Monte Bianco. Dovete rimanere all'interno fin quando non arriveranno le nostre squadre di intervento.
But also first aid cupboard with hose reels for the hydrants located at the entrance. And, crucially, they are also connected by a fireproof door to the aeration ducts that are also an escape route. The command center and control room also manages the automatic response to problems, such as cars parked in the emergency bays, fumes or fires, maintains video contact with each of the refuges, but also establishes the neutral point of the air currents through the tunnel to ensure that there is always natural ventilation.
In questo momento abbiamo sensori per.
In this moment, we have temperature sensors, measuring temperature increases, sensors to identify blocked vehicles, sensors that, on the basis of this information, and thanks to measurement of the air currents in the tunnel, are able to manage ventilators and all the events that could arise, and they give information to the personnel, allowing them to manage any event.
Questo è accompagnato da una organizzazione.
This is alongside an organization of rapid intervention personnel that allows for firefighting teams to be in the tunnel, let's say within a minute and a half of the occurrence of the event.
Attrezzate anche per gestire un eventuale incendio a entrare in galleria.
In 1999, the refuges were not connected to the aeration ducts, and a number of events and errors led to the catastrophe and a breakdown of the whole system. Misunderstandings and inefficiencies during the fire response and rescue contributed to the deaths of 39 people on that fateful day of the 24th of March, 1999. The story of the Mont Blanc tunnel fire begins when truck driver Gilbert de Grave begins his trip to Italy in his Volvo articulated lorry, hauling a load of margarine and flour. On these steep roads up to the Mont Blanc tunnel, the engines of trucks often overheat. But when de Grave enters the toll gate, everything seems normal. He passes the toll gate on the French side at 10:46. He drives for 6.7 kilometers at an average speed of 56 kilometers per hour towards Italy before he notices that cars and trucks begin flashing their lights at him. He realizes that something must be wrong and looks in the rear view and wing mirrors. What he sees horrifies him. Flames are coming out from a space between his cabin and the trailer. 10 years later, a fire in the Frejus tunnel is almost identical to what happened to de Grave in the Mont Blanc tunnel. As he gets out, the whole cab is engulfed in flames, and he runs down the tunnel to the Italian side. The two trucks immediately behind him overtake, despite zero visibility, and proceed towards Italy. But those following are blinded and stop. Some of these trucks are hauling highly toxic materials, such as PVC, paint, diesel oil. Plus, another truck also carrying margarine and flour. They also have huge fuel tanks. The Italian control room is warned by a driver calling from an emergency phone at 10:54. So within the next 2 minutes, both sides of the tunnel are blocked. The wind is blowing down the tunnel from Italy to France, and the dense fumes that the Belgian truck is producing begin racing towards France. Lieutenant Colonel Chappet was a captain at the time and was called in from Annecy to help organize the rescue.
The refuges and garages were positioned alternately. The bays were designed to allow a vehicle or heavy goods vehicle to park without blocking the traffic, so it was not a safe area in itself. The refuges were located every 600 meters from the tunnel opening, so people in the tunnel could reach the refuges via fire doors, double fire doors. But the complication with the refuges was that they were not connected to the ventilation ducts, and communication with the safety command centers was difficult.
De Grave is met by the French security officer making his way back towards France. One by one, truck drivers are taken to ventilation conduits driven by French employee Patrick Devoissou, and then collected by a van and a car sent in from the Italian side. An Italian employee of the tunnel company, Pierlucio Tinazzi, known as Spadino, races towards the center of the fire on a motorcycle and manages to save one truck driver, then rushes back in. He takes another driver to one of the refuges. Together, they wait for rescue. Just 2 minutes after the alarm is raised, a security officer of the French company enters the tunnel but is beaten back by the fumes, warning the company's emergency response crew they will need respiratory equipment. They are forced by the fumes to head to Refuge 17. The alpine ski resort town of Chamonix, known for its spectacular view of Mont Blanc, is just a few kilometers away, and the first responders approach from the French side. At 11:10, the first fire truck from Chamonix arrives, commanded by Georges Tozello. There are 5 members of the crew, but only 3 masks, and they have normal compressed air bottles, not rebreathers. While the 3 firemen approach the wall of smoke, the driver and the commander of the vehicle are overwhelmed by the fumes and head to Refuge 11. Italian firefighters from Courmayeur arrive around 11:15, but by the time they enter the tunnel to attempt to get close to the truck, they are blocked by the fumes 600 meters from the burning vehicle. We went in and, with our fire truck, reached approximately Bay 22. That's as far as we got. I saw that it was better to turn the truck around just in case there was a change in the ventilation. Better to have the truck turned around to get out. We tried to reverse in total darkness, but it was getting hot and so we couldn't see anything. We could hear the explosions, so I must have got to 200 or 300 meters from the lorry. In Chamonix, the fire station has been alerted, and a second truck is preparing to leave. I passed by the barracks by chance that day, and the first fire truck had just left. And they said, Guy, get ready. There is likely to be a need for extra help, as there's a fire in the tunnel. I got ready and got into the second fire truck, and left to reinforce the first that had already gone 10 or 15 minutes earlier. We didn't know what had happened in the tunnel, just that there was a lot of smoke, and that's all we knew. Bruno Sistilli drove the first Italian fire truck into the tunnel. We were forced to move the truck slowly from one bay to the next until we got to Bay 24, when we were told to stop there. We were told by radio to stop there, as they knew there were people inside, on the French side. So we stopped there on purpose to regroup, so as to go back in to garage 20 and 21, so as to be able to, as it were, to save some lives. But it was in vain, unfortunately. We left with a normal light fire truck of the time, and we were all equipped with isolating breathing apparatus. And we just had to refill our bottles of the isolating breathing apparatus at the entrance to the tunnel to gain capacity, to gain autonomy, and ensure we could get back, and to bring new bottles to our colleagues who were already inside.
We arrived more or less at midday, and as soon as we arrived, we entered the tunnel. And we knew that one of our teams was inside, made up of 3 people from the Courmayeur station. And we knew that a lorry had caught fire, but we thought it was just one lorry.
Guy Salvetti was a young volunteer fireman at the time.
Et lorsqu'on se présente à l'entrée du tunnel, un mur de fumée est face à nous.
When we get to the entrance of the tunnel, we see a wall of smoke. We go into pitch blackness. So pitch blackness, zero visibility, and our only aid is to drive onto the pavement and to follow the tunnel wall as close as possible. There is no smell, as we are protected by the breathing apparatus. The heat isn't particularly great. It's just dark, very dense darkness.
En termes de chaleur, c'est pas excessif, c'est juste noir et noir très dense.
At 11:36, the second fire truck from Chamonix arrives and is ordered by the commander, who has reached the command post outside the tunnel, to rescue the other firefighters. They are forced to a halt nearly 5 kilometers from the burning truck. 3 firefighters drive on.
On est rentré à 5, on était 5 dans le fourgon.
There were 5 of us. There were 5 in the truck, and at the third refuge we dropped 2 off, because since we aren't making good progress, we decide to leave 2 in a refuge, and 3 of us go forward. 3 of us. The truck hit the wall constantly so as to be able to move forward. Otherwise, we can't go forward. We improvised because we had no way of seeing what was in front of us. We had no infrared cameras or anything like that. And that was the only way of going forward to reach the first truck. Marco Berto commanded the second Italian fire team to enter the tunnel.
We went in, and we drove a little more than 4 kilometers, slightly beyond Refuge 24, and we found the Courmayeur team. There was already a wall of smoke, and they were coming backwards, driving backwards, because they couldn't work in all that smoke. So we went back to Garage 24. The smoke advanced at walking pace. We walked, and the smoke followed.
On s'est divisé en deux. Moi, j'étais dans le sas.
We broke up into 2 groups. I was in the refuge, as there was a refuge right there where 2 colleagues were, and while we were going forward, we heard that 2 of our colleagues had gone towards Italy. So these 2 colleagues who had started towards Italy had found safety about 30 or 40 meters from the refuge, over an air hole in the road. They've taken refuge there and breathed the fresh air. So we went back and forth between my unconscious colleagues and the hole. We all found safety huddling over the hole and made a bell with our fire jackets to capture the fresh air and waited for an ambulance.
Guardate, se riuscite, andate verso il rifugio successivo.
If you can, go towards the next refuge, 23, to see if there's someone. Because we know that someone's there, but we don't know if in number 23 or 22, but you just start on your way. I and Glaret only had 2 closed-circuit rebreathers, and these are bottles that give you more or less 4 hours of autonomy. So we put on these rebreathers and we headed towards Refuge 23.
In these images, we see firefighters train in zero visibility conditions with breathing apparatus, and we see how they deal with obstacles. It is an exhausting task.
Al rifugio 23 siamo entrati, non c'era nessuno.
We entered Refuge 23, but there was no one there. So we thought they'd be in Refuge 22. So we said, let's try to go forward. We went off again, and there was this smoke. And then we began to feel the heat, a lot of heat. And we began to hear the noises. Explosions of tires, fuel tanks. Everything was exploding and burning. So there was a lot of noise. We never got to 22 because at a certain point the temperature was simply too high. So the only solution to save our own lives was to go back.
Berthaud and Glaret return to Refuge 24. The firefighters are now trapped in the tunnel. There is no escape. By now, the situation on the French side of the burning Mont Blanc tunnel is desperate. A team from the motorway company is trapped in Refuge 17, while a team of 3 French firemen are blocked in Garage 12, and 2, including team commander Georges Tozelot, in Refuge 11. There are 4 ventilation ducts and 1 extraction and ventilation tunnel. The fire captain now orders the turbines reversed and fresh air to be pushed into the fume extraction tunnel so that his team can use it to reach the trapped personnel. Despite poor visibility and equipped with rebreathers, the team enters the tunnel, but are forced out at Refuge 5, where they find part of the crew of the 2nd firefighting vehicle. They then proceed and reach Refuge 11, which Georges Tozelot and his driver reached after abandoning their vehicle. They call in a 3rd fire truck with extra oxygen bottles and proceed to Garage 12, finding 2 firefighters huddled in the extinguisher niche between the 2. In Garage 12, they find 5 firefighters with their heads covered by their leather jackets and all breathing from the ventilation shaft. The operation has taken 5 hours in all. Georges Tozelot does not survive the massive carbon monoxide poisoning. He and several others died in the refuges meant to keep them safe. No further attempt is made to rescue drivers from the French side, as neither the French nor Italian teams can get close due to extreme heat and fumes.
Dans un premier temps, il y a une ambulance qui est venue chercher donc nos 2 collègues inconscients.
At first, there was an ambulance that came to pick up our 2 unconscious colleagues, and later, a utility vehicle arrived with new compressed air bottles, so we all changed our bottles and we left in the truck we had come in with.
On est ressorti avec le fourgon avec lequel on était rentré.
On the Italian side, 6 firefighters are blocked in Refuge 24.
C'era troppo fumo e l'unica soluzione che ci è arrivata dall'esterno
There was just too much smoke, and the only solution that was given to us from outside was to use a ventilation duct that could both ventilate and extract, and go through that duct that is located under the road. The problem was that at the time it wasn't as well organized as today. So for a start, we had to find the access door that was closed.
che era chiusa.
There is only one way out, via the ventilation tunnels under the road. They can be accessed by doors along the wall. Today, Salvatore Coriale commands the Aosta fire station, and he was there on the day.
C'era il problema che il traforo era, come dire, compartimentato, ovviamente.
The problem was that the tunnel was separated from the ventilation ducts by airtight doors that were also locked from inside the ventilation duct. So even if the team had left the refuge and found the door, they couldn't open it. So we sent 2 firefighters on foot along the ventilation duct to unlock all the doors from inside the ventilation duct.
This door couldn't be opened from the outside, so we had to wait for 2 colleagues to walk down the whole duct to open the door from inside.
Per poterci venire a aprire la porta. Per fargli capire la porta che era.
In order to tell them which was our door, we beat on the door to make a noise. So that's how they found us.
Well, the fatigue, we didn't really feel it because we were focused on getting out. We didn't know what the situation was down there, whether we would get out or not. We had quite a few kilometers to walk, and I had 2 air bottles on my shoulders, and altogether we got out, bit by bit. We stopped for a while around the 2nd kilometer to talk among ourselves, and then we decided to continue, on and out. We didn't see much because it was dark. There was a light every now and then. It wasn't like now, all lit up, so it was hard to walk. Most of the car and truck drivers simply wait as the blinding thick smoke overwhelms them. There is nothing the firefighters can do. Over the following 5 hours, the temperature in the tunnel rises to around 1,000 degrees as the flammable contents of the trucks catch fire. By the time the last fireman is out of the tunnel, all they can do is wait. The next morning, just after midnight, firefighters from Italy, France and Switzerland begin approaching the fire from the Italian side, spraying the walls with water to reduce the intense heat.
I francesi sono arrivati a circa 900 metri, noi eravamo sui 600 metri, però eravamo ancora abbastanza distanti.
The French reached to within 900 meters. We reached within 600 meters. So we were quite far off. So in the evening of the 24th we decided to attack the fire just from the Italian side. But we couldn't transfer the French firefighters by helicopter because the weather conditions had changed, and it became dangerous to fly over the Mont Blanc.
Diventava difficile anche sorvolare il Monte Bianco, per cui partì una colonna francese e svizzera che attraversò.
So a French and Swiss column travelled over the Great St. Bernard Pass and reached Italy through Switzerland. The French and Swiss firefighters reached Italy on the morning of the 25th, and we continued to attack from the Italian side. Let's say that we managed to reach ground zero on the morning of the 25th.
There is little left of the women and men who perished in the fire. Now both the French and the Italian judicial authorities begin their investigations. Some passengers are identified thanks to their license plates. Pierlucio Tinazzi and the truck driver he attempted to save are found dead of carbon monoxide poisoning in Refuge 20, huddled with their faces near the ventilation duct. The fire doors were designed to withstand 4 hours of fire. His BMW motorbike has literally melted into the road.
Io sono entrato la mattina del 26.
I entered on the morning of the 26th, and that's when we realized the number of victims as we found them, but obviously it took more than a day to establish the exact number of victims. We noticed that, obviously, with those temperatures, there wasn't much left of the bodies of the victims, especially those found inside the cars, mostly just their bones. And this led us to believe that the majority of people died in their cars or lorries in the early minutes or hours from gas or fumes poisoning.
The ceiling of the tunnel is severely damaged and all the fixtures and wiring destroyed. Just 2 months later, on May the 29th, 1999, another fire breaks out in an alpine tunnel, this time the Tauern Tunnel in Austria.
The main negative aspect is, unfortunately, the death toll. But the good point is that the Mont Blanc tunnel fire, followed by the Tauern Tunnel fire 3 months later, set in motion the whole European and even worldwide regulation of tunnel building and fire rescue in confined environments. 21 years later, the tunnels that are being built have, at least for the last 10 years, taken into account the new safety rules that include safe spaces, evacuation ducts, the connection of refugees with evacuation ducts, that include detection methods that are much more sensitive and adopt new technologies.
The manslaughter trial begins on the 31st of January 2005 in Bonneville, with an appeal trial held the following year. Only the director of safety on the French side of the tunnel is found guilty, while Gilbert de Grave is amnestied.
Io ero presidente della Società Autostrade Valdostane, ho seguito con angoscia.
I was the president of the Valle d'Aosta motorways, and I was saddened by those events, that tragedy, because the Mont Blanc tunnel was my life. Not only because of what my granddad told me, but because I took part in the construction. And I remember the days of excitement before the arrival of the presidents de Gaulle and Saragat at the Italian entrance. So for me it was incredibly sad, even if I wasn't involved. I was a witness 3 times at the Bonneville trial, and like all such publicized trials, it wasn't the most fun to follow.
The court found that the fire was caused by a cigarette butt thrown into de Grave's Volvo truck air filter. In the meantime, work has begun on a complete overhaul of the deepest and longest tunnel in the world, and a new company is formed to manage it.
Noi e il nostro personale guardiamo avanti. Quello è stato un evento.
Our employees and we look to the future. It was a significant event at the European level. It set in motion the revision of tunnel management throughout Europe. The European directive draws on that experience and the measures adopted that are the basis of the new rules. We look to the future. We have learnt from the event. But I can say the history of an infrastructure remains in the heart and soul of us all. But we and our personnel prefer to look to the future and improve things continuously.
Però, ecco, diciamo che il nostro personale, noi ci piace guardare avanti in questa ricerca di miglioramento continuo.
The Mont Blanc tunnel fire has alerted the whole of the European Union that there may be more unsafe tunnels. It is also a warning to the world. People caught in a tunnel fire don't die from the fire, but rather from the fumes and smoke. Civil engineers working on new tunnels in Europe and the US immediately begin rethinking their plans.
Noi non abbiamo mai avuto eventi particolarmente significativi.
We have not had any particularly significant events, or dramatic events, let's say, since the tunnel was reopened. Certainly since the fire, we have had no such event. Very often thanks to the timely intervention of our teams. So, where there was the potential for an event to develop, the beginning of a fire, for example, our rapid response ensured that there were no consequences. So, if I were to look back at the statistics, I can say that the level of safety is very high, and that's confirmed by experience.
Sento di poter dire che il livello di sicurezza è molto alto e la storia questo ci dice.
Today, the new tunnel has extensive lighting, a dedicated radio frequency.
Welcome to the Mont Blanc tunnel. In the tunnel, overtaking is strictly forbidden.
And 20 communication panels giving information to drivers. 3 fire service stations operate inside the tunnel, with 4 trucks kept there. There are 37 refuges, 36 areas for cars to pull over, and 79 fire extinguishing stations. Plus a permanent contingent of firefighters who also carry out practice runs regularly with Italian and French firefighters. They are ready for any event, but are confident that the Mont Blanc tunnel is safe.
Faisons 4 exercices internes organisés sous notre autorité par an.
We carry out 4 exercises organised internally every year that systematically include the public services in France and Italy, be they the fire brigades, the medical emergency services, or law enforcement officers. We try to vary the themes so as to train in areas that might be fire, or an exercise more concerned with a road accident, or exercises more focused on general safety. And we involve our partners systematically because the fire brigades of Italy and France are our partners in the safety of the tunnel, and it's important to work together to get to know each other before any event.
Pour apprendre à se connaître avant un événement.
Rebuilt from the ashes of a tragedy, this amazing feat of engineering, dug through the remarkable alpine landscape in the 1960s, is now one of the safest tunnels in Europe. Unfortunately, many had to die crossing beneath the Alps in Switzerland, Austria, Italy and France before safety was made a priority. And still today, there are no Europe-wide standards for tunnel safety. Those that had disasters are now safer than before, but Europe's aging tunnels and roadways still need pressing infrastructure repairs and maintenance for safe passage through the continent's most majestic mountains. Standing at the foot of the steep road that leads to the Mont Blanc tunnel is a monument to 39 people, including a family of 4 and a French firefighter. The men and women who died in the worst fire in a road tunnel ever lost their lives as a result of a number of technical failings that should never have happened, a sequence of errors and unexpected events that cascaded into a catastrophe.